for it to end with an Ambry Thomas interception was probably kind of perfect, given how unpredictable sports are. But incredible game.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most. I mean, it's the most remarkable thing I've ever seen live. Just the ebb and flow. I mean, they were getting blown out, and to end up winning that game, to have the lows and the highs, the Jimmy roller coaster. Um, you're at a loss for words. We were leaving the stadium. There really isn't anything like the NFL when it's at its best. Sunday night too, right? When it's just the drama, the game's tight, it's really good. You're on the edge of your seat, and because we were watching them warm up, and there's just and they use the word a lot, body bag game. I saw Debo was using that, and I think Jimmy said that to him, and Kittle was saying it, and the thing with football is you practice all week for this event that becomes like a Broadway show, but it's a Broadway show meets the UFC / track / a ball. And it is a violent, I mean, that game today was violent. I mean, there people getting hit, the people running for their life. I mean, Jimmy and Stafford just under pressure. The plays made, obviously, the Niners, Debo, Samuel, the 3 wide receivers, but Cooper Kupp was fantastic. It was just Von Miller had the big sack. I mean, it was stars. That was a Broadway show, NFL version. 35 million people probably watching. That's as good as it gets.
I mean, it is. You're right. It's as good as it gets, and it was almost as bad as it gets. Like, you were there, and it's one of those where you're like, at the end of the day, you for the rest of your life will never again think about how much money you spent on 50-yard line tickets for that game. But there was a point in time where it was like, am I going to leave early? Wasn't there a guy next to you that left early at the game?
Yeah, he
did you get his name?
When they punted, he looks at me and says, "It's over." And I said, "I know." And he walked away. He wasn't crazy. They were going to punt. Even if they got the ball back, they were going to have no timeouts. They were going to have to go, assuming they could even punt it. This was right before Robbie. Their punter was their kicker. And then if you start doing the math, you're like, well, they're just going to get it back at like the 15 or the 12 or the 20. They have to score a touchdown. So he left and never came back. And then Danny Trejo ended up sitting next to me, and we watched overtime together, and it was awesome. And that guy left. That guy fucking left in that moment. And I did it one time with did you do it too? LeBron James game winner with the Warriors, which is not. I mean, it's just a
I remember having the conversation like, let's tell everybody that we stayed.
But it's the regular, random regular season NBA game or baseball, you forget about it. Like in football, especially playoff games or a game like this at Week 18, you never forget being there. Like I'll never forget the pick of the stick because that got them into the playoffs and the way it ended. I'll never forget. Was there another big? Just being at big Niner playoff.
Game
would
6.
Forget.
Weren't you at the Game 6 Warrior game? Weren't you at the Warrior Game 6 NBA Finals?
It was Game 7. It was with LeBron.
Oh, Game 7.
I got a little drunk that time, but it was just. That was just a moment. Like if you were at the Seattle Niner game a couple years ago, you're still talking about that in your friend groups. Like,
we still talk about the pick of the stick, and I loved it, but it was not as, like you said, as good as that.
Because you're playing Atlanta now. You got you into the playoffs,
and it was the last night of Candle. Anyway, it's
when you just have these games that are win or get in. Now the tie, like the Raider game, the tie was at play, but you have to be a complete fucking loser to root for a tie. I refuse to root for the tie, even if it might have been the right, because they would have got the Rams instead of the Cowboys, which who knows? I mean, can they just keep beating the Rams? Maybe, but I cannot root for ties. I can't do it because it was being talked about in there, right? I mean, everyone's thinking it, watching the game because a tie you're in.
Yeah, see, I don't think everyone watching the game on TV, it was not really a conversation until overtime on TV. Like, it was not like the Raider-Charger game that everyone had thrown the scenarios out for a week.
Yeah.
So it was not really a conversation. And I think once you're in the game, like, once you're in the game, anyone that's ever competed just wants to win the game they're playing. They have, what is it? No quarter. Take no prisoners. But no quarter means like, we're not giving them an inch. Like, I don't care if Brandon Staley makes the playoffs.
Here's the thing about sports and just anything, right? Entertainment. You want to remember it and remember it being just remarkable or over the top or something you'll never forget. I think the tie is like, that sucked. The Raider and Niner game had a moment. If you were the fan of the team that won, you never forget that.
Well, especially like imagine the Rams had to put on NFC West Championship T-shirts after that game. That probably was not they're not framing those photos for their McVay's not putting that photo up in his office.
Chance
right?
they didn't. Chance they didn't put the hats.
Put the T-shirts on. Hats and T-shirts. It was a hat and T-shirt game for the Rams. You know what's really good?
But they knew that, and that's what I started wondering. Did he just tell Stafford who even cares? We already won the division.
You mean that throw down the sideline? It's like once you're in the overtime,
the problem is
knock the Niners out.
And doesn't that just look like Matt Stafford? That's just what he's been doing.
Here's the other thing. You're the Rams. You're trying to win the Super Bowl, right? Wouldn't you rather knock out the team that's beaten you 5 in a row and put the Saints into the playoffs? So
guy, that's what I've been talking about with the tie. Why do you want your opponent to get in the playoffs too? Right, that's what my. Well,
you don't. I mean, it's not. I don't want to get off on this because Raiders Chargers. We can talk about it.
No. I know, but I'm just saying, you want to beat the Rams. You didn't want to tie. Tying's for fucking losers. That's soccer, and it's just not that big in this country, even though it's getting a little bigger. But we don't like that. We want someone to win the game.
Well, of course, but there's a scenario where, again, this is why I don't.
There was a scenario in the Niner game. If they tied, they would have got in.
Understood. But they didn't have a decision where it's like, if we just tie here, we're in. They were never in that position, right? If you have no time left on the clock and it's go for 2 to win or kick the extra point for tie, then you kick the extra point, you tie, you end overtime, and you go to the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they kicked the field goal, and I thought would they go for it? But when Kittle got tackled, I think Kittle had 5 catches for 10 yards. His line just looks pretty funny, but I'll give Jimmy credit on that throw at the their overtime drive. You just cannot turn it over. That's what everyone kept saying. You cannot. Yeah. I'll take a dump down, especially once Juwan Jennings got them into field goal range, which felt like, I can't, from my angle, I couldn't see it. Was Robbie just banging those kicks today? Was he?
Yeah, he was. Out of the hold of Kyle Juszczyk.
Robbie, he played a fucking huge role today on your team, so you just believe in him. I thought Jimmy checking it down to Kittle, he played very under control on that final overtime drive where interception or something, it just ends your season. And it was but back to the Stafford thing. When the ball was in the air, I thought he was going to. It was like, oh, Amber, is this guy going to fall?
He was roasted, right?
Wasn't roasted, but it was one-on-one coverage, and the Niners, how many one-on-one coverage? Even if the guy's been around, have balls been made play? Guys on the offense have made plays. I saw Kyle Shanahan when we were driving back to the hotel. Said after the game, when I first saw Ambry Thomas. Basically, I never thought in a million years we'd be where we are today. Basically, that might sound harsh, but
wait, he's saying when he saw him in single coverage on Odell?
No. When he saw him earlier in the season, when he saw him in practice, and I bet he was playing scout team against his offense, and they are abusing him. Now you would be like, well, yes, Debo. How do you cover that guy? But basically, his quote was, "This guy's come a long way," because he was pretty good today. Their DB that was giving it up was 27. And I didn't understand, D'Amico, you can only do so much, but you can't keep putting 27 on 10. That was early on in the game. It was 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 11. It was just, they're going to lose this way. This is crazy. So the irony / I don't even know the right adjective to describe it, of a corner actually winning them the game with a pick. Because Mosley has been good. To me, that's not him and Tart, make plays.
But I will say this, this is where Stafford comes into play, right? Is if you play a game where Stafford throws the ball enough, maybe he is just destined to eventually throw an interception or two if he's going to throw it up enough.
Do you have his line? Do you have the box?
Yeah, 21 to 32, 238, 3 touchdowns. But he was 15 of 16 in the first half, which means in the second half he was 5 of 12 for 76 yards. Okay. Yeah. I don't have his over. What's his overtime?
Well, they basically went 3. Maybe they got 1 first down.
Yeah. So he was 1 of 4 in overtime, John. So that means he was 6 of 16 after halftime. That's pretty terrible.
Here's what's weird. You want Stafford to throw just because what he's been doing the second half of the season, the numbers speak for itself. But you're watching the game thinking, And anytime that you know your team so well, like anyone listening to this, watch the game, you watch every 49er snap of Kyle's career. Like you just know the strengths and weaknesses of all the players, besides probably some guards and centers. You don't because you're not watching them. But like all the skill guys, the linebackers, the running backs, you got a pretty good beat on it. And you're just thinking to yourself, why do they not just continue to pass? There's no way to stop it. Every time you run it against the Niners, and I would just say in general, it goes back to the Titan game, is a huge win for the Niners. And I just don't get. And I couldn't be a coach. I have no desire to be a coach. These coaches are crazy. Like, what are we doing? Like, we have to establish the run for what? They cannot guard Cooper Kupp. He was killing them, guy. Killing them. And Stafford, when he threw it to him, it always looked good.
Yeah. No, he was.
I thought Cooper Kupp, I was like, am I watching the white Jerry Rice? I thought that. I was like, this guy is. Because I don't talk shit about him, but in my back of my head, I'm like, is this guy really this good? You watch him live, you're like, that guy's a badass. Like that guy today, like you left Debo, Von Miller, you just the stars. It's like, that guy's a star.
He was 5 for 85 in the first half, 2 for 34 in the second half. Yeah, you're right. He felt uncoverable, and I'm sure he's probably one of the things that's like worth the price of admission.
How sweet was
you
like
can't watch receivers the same way on TV as you can in person.
What you thought was going to be the game-winning touchdown potentially when they ran like Cooper on this little like loop, and then he shot toward the back of the corner of the end zone. I'm like, that's a pretty good play.
He made that catch and the catch he made earlier on the drive was like, how did he?
Wasn't Jimmy Ward there both times? Wasn't Jimmy there both times?
Yes. Who else time went through his hands?
So I'll give D'Amico credit.
Arms.
He took 27 off of him, and he put Jimmy on him, and it's just hard. I mean, Jimmy's just right there. It's just Stafford. The ball that he hit before the touchdown on that one where he got blitzed and threw it up there, that was like that's the NFL. Like that level of throw. Love Jimmy, and we'll talk about him later. A lot of respect. I don't know. Jimmy's got that one in the back. Now, I'm not Stafford. I got him red flagged. Like, I think they are no lock to win this week, but that was a remarkable throw.
Championship throw. Like those are the throws that make you a legend in the Super Bowl when you hit that throw.
Yeah. The problem is he just won't be in the Super Bowl.
No.
Like you just leave this and you go, now it's a matchup thing, but there is something that the Niners have, and it's different because the plays are different, and the Harbaugh teams were just a little bigger, right, up the D-line. They just, Bowman and Willis are just a different level of Greenlaw and Fred. But Kyle, the toughness of the team, it is hard not to love a team when they're just like, our guys are fucking tough.
Yeah.
Our guys are just tough. Like
it includes
mentally. The Steelers, the Saints, like, I got a bunch of respect for you hear this a lot with college coaches and when all these NFL guys are going to get hired and they're going to talk culture. You see culture. Like the Niners culture is we're going to fucking throw haymakers. And they could have easily tapped out like my next door neighbor that walked out. But even before that, I mean, the money's the money. It's gone. It was more that you buy a movie ticket, you buy a game ticket, and you never know what you're going to get, especially with a game. Probably more in a movie, you have some idea. With a game, you truly have no clue. And it really felt until that drive, even at the end of the half, and you didn't know what to really make of it. I was like, I didn't want to put too much stock in the 3 points. But are they going to lose this game 38-7?
Well, it was kind of like the Texans, right? At the end of the half where they just got a good drive going, and then as it turned out, it did kind of roll into the next half. And I did think one thing that stood out, well, I don't want to get to Jimmy yet, although I won't get to Jimmy yet. The other thing I'll say, just big picture on the game, and then we can get into some other specifics, was the defensive front was fantastic. Now, there were times when they didn't get there, and Stafford did make a play, but he was under pressure the whole game. I mean, who's really good? Eric Armstead was really good.
Well, he had 2.5 sacks today.
2.5 sacks. Bosa was obviously really good. They do such a phenomenal job. I mean, it's undeniable the development that they do. Obviously, having Bosa or Armstead, these are physical freaks, but like every guy they add becomes a contributor on defense up front. Yeah. It's incredible.
He changed Arden Key's career, right? He's going to get him a contract.
Yeah.
Might not be too crazy, but he'll get him a $6 million or $210. That's this guy. There is something in football. Like, what it turns out watching that game, like George Kittle, Jalen Ramsey, Trent, who, let's keep our fingers crossed, can make him on the sideline made me feel pretty good. I know Kyle said after he got there early today, like he desperately wanted to play. I think Trent's proven like tough guy, so I'm not, he couldn't play. But when you have just these unreal players that just continue to get better, and part of it is coaching, and I think Sean's really good too. Like, I mean, for whatever reason, but Sean has made Cooper Kupp a star. right? Under his watch, those guys on offense get better. Under Kyle's watch, those guys improve. Under this defensive line coach's watch, that guy, I would guess Chris Kasarik makes $1.5 million. Now, he might not be, I don't know if another coach would feel comfortable making him his defensive coordinator. Maybe he's just, a line guy. He doesn't know, coverages as well. Because that's Jerry Azanero, Chip's guy that everyone talks a bunch of shit about. That he's a good defensive line coach. Armstead, Buckner, all those years, with when they got to the Eagles, like he does a good job. But he doesn't know what he's doing as a coverage guy. But when you're as good as Kasarik, or you have a friend like Chip, but that guy made a mistake. He went to be the defensive coordinator. Kasarik, you can be a $2 million defensive line coach. Like, what is he worth to Kyle and Jed and John? What's he worth to Bosa and Armstead? If I'm those guys, like, hey guys, we got to keep this motherfucker around. I give Jerry credit with Kellen Moore. The best part about the no salary cap with the coaches, like, you can cut big boy checks.
And even big boy checks for coaches are not big boy checks for players. So a coach that gets a lot more out of a player than his salary is an invaluable asset, right? Well, what difference does it make to that? Like we talk about all the time. If you said, okay, you're going to go from paying him 1.5 to 2.25, all right, let's pay him way more money than anybody.
Let's just use a pick at even though he's making $1 million this year.
Okay, let's say you double it to 2, right? Imagine where you spend that $1 million from a player standpoint. And this one doesn't count against the cap. The guys you sign for $1 million, you do not get, by and large, the value on those players that you get out of your defensive line coach.
Facts. And sometimes, the head coach who happens to be the coordinator, this is the best thing about Kyle, is you never have to worry your coordinator leaving. Because Debo has become a star, and Kyle deserves credit, so does Wes Welker. And Brandon Ayuk was a first-round pick. But when you can take a Juwan Jennings, like watching that guy live, I've been to now a decade worth of game. I've been to a lot of NFL games over the last 10, 11 years. You watch that guy and you go, this guy physically is a legitimate NFL player, right? I mean, he pops on the TV, breaking the tackles, the size, how smooth he catches the ball. When you can't, and think of what they just did. They replaced Bourne with him. Like, that's hard to do. It's hard to replace. It's obviously impossible to replace stars. Like, if Nick Bosa disappears, you're fucked. When George Kittle was out of the lineup, the Niners are in trouble. I mean, even Trent Williams, I don't know how they did it, but somehow they did it. But this is not, they cannot, they can't beat the Cowboys without Trent Williams. You see, and you have to have Trent Williams back. If you don't, that's a major problem. Micah Parsons is going to beat the shit out of any one of these random offensive linemen that most people watching have not heard of unless you're like a draft nerd. Because when you're at the game, I had to rely on you. Like, immediately I got 3 texts. Trent Williams out, WTF. That was a crazy moment, probably, I'm sure, when you saw it online, right?
Yeah.
Because then we immediately, me and Scotty go, listen, you're going to lose. But couldn't this just be a mono versus mono, our best players versus your best players, and have it out? And now you take away the Niners against a pass rush. Aaron Donald, I didn't really notice him today.
They were doubling him on every play, I think.
So it's just
every replay was just 4 hands on Donald.
The Niners' best players today and Jennings were just fantastic war daddies.